Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about tuning issues that can happen on the Music Man Majesty guitar or any type of guitar that has a moving bridge and a non-locking nut. So that's your Fender Stratocasters, that's a lot of guitars out there. And before I give you any of the tips that actually resolve these issues, the first thing we have to talk about is that you're actually tuning correctly. And I know that that sounds like a simple concept, but I'm totally sick of being in these Facebook groups and they go, oh, I just bought this $4,000 guitar and it doesn't hold tuning. It's not an issue with the guitar, it's an issue with how you are interacting with the guitar. So you need to get educated and watch this video, and I'm going to show you a bunch of things that I've learned from amazing techs and from personal experience and working with students so that you can have an awesome experience playing these guitars or any other guitar that has a floating type bridge or a moving bridge and a non-locking nut. So first off, what do I mean by tuning correctly? And what a lot of people do is they go, okay, well, oh, okay, that G sounds a little bit sharp. I've set up the guitar this way before I started recording. So what they'll do is they'll go, and they'll tune from a sharp note down to an in tune note. And what happens is really, this is the root of all of these problems, is when you go for a giant whammy dive or whatever, you're taking all of the tension out of this part of the strings, it's sliding through the nut that has friction, and then loose tension is getting caught in this part of the guitar. And then you go to play again, and the tension is not equal between each side of the nut. So this is really what we're doing when we're tuning. We're not just setting the very exact length and tension of the strings. We're setting an equal amount of tension between the string that exists behind the nut and after the nut. So what happens when you go from a sharp note and you just tune down to an in tune note is that there's more tension here, or loose tension that you've let out, that has not yet transferred beyond the nut so that the note can be in tune. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something that I call string pulling, and that's where I reach over the string and I give it a little tug, or I just call it a tug. And now you're going to see these two notes go from being in tune to being flat. It's in tune. Now I'm going to give the G string a tug. So here is a really up-close example of a string tug. You can see I'm just going to reach over with my first finger, just pull the string like that. So we'll do it with some sound on. It's a very subtle difference. It doesn't happen all the time because this guitar is set up properly. But on like my Squier Stratocaster, which I've done no setup work on, especially with the nut, this is a very strong issue. So when you're going through and initially tuning your guitar, you need to make sure that you're not just tuning from a sharp note down to an in tune note. What you need to do instead is tune from a sharp note. And then I tune down to where the note is flat. I give a tug to release all of that extra tension on the string, and then I pull the string up in tune. Because if you're always tuning from a flat note up to an in tune note, the tension must be equal here, because you've pulled, the tension in order to get through the nut has to overcome the friction here. So if it overcame the friction to be in tune, then that means that the string that exists behind the nut, as well as the string that exists before the nut, the actual playing area, are already equal in tension. And that's what I mean by making sure that you're actually tuning the guitar correctly before you go and say, oh, my guitar has tuning issues. All right, now that we've talked about how to tune correctly, let's talk about the 3 fixes that you can actually apply when you're playing these guitars in order to hold stable tuning. And the first one is to use a product like Tune It, or there's another very popular product called Big Ben's Nut Sauce. I know it's kind of a funny name. And the way that you apply these products is very simple. You're going to tune down your string, you're going to move that string over to the side, and then you're just going to take a little bit of that lubricant and just apply it in the little slot where the string goes. And that's really it. And then you tune the string back up. And what that does is it helps the string to move through the nut with much less friction. And that results in more stable tuning. Now, the second tip that you can apply, which I'm a really big fan of, is simply changing string gauges. Now, you can go to, a tech and you can say, okay, I want you to, do filing on the nut and, get the strings to move that way. And that's gonna help a lot with addition of the lubricant. But the reason I switched from 10s to 9s is not just to help with the tuning issues, because these strings, because they're smaller, it doesn't require any filing of the nut, but also because they're much, much easier to bend. I'll just do, So changing from 10s to 9s is not only going to be something that could very well help your tuning, but it can also make bends a little bit easier and just playing overall easier. I switched, just a couple weeks ago, and I'm immediately happy with how much easier my guitar is to play. So now we're on to tip number 3, which is a tip that I learned from a great tech here in the Scottsdale area in Arizona named John Bronson, and he did some work on this guitar, and it's just awesome. Thanks, John. And the tip he shared with me is that if you're having problems with a big whammy dive and then all the strings are coming up flat, you can give a quick, tug up on the whammy bar, and a lot of times that'll fix the tuning. I just tested on this guitar. I'm not having problems with that. I'm having problems with it being sharp, but it's only sharp by maybe about 5 cents or so. So I don't have a guitar to demonstrate this trick with you, but he demonstrated it on his guitar in the store with the Floyd Rose. There are very, very, very small tuning fluctuations that can happen of 5 to 6 cents. It's not something that necessarily would totally stick out in a performance, but if you just got a G and a D string ringing and it's not quite perfectly in tune, then it might stick out a little bit. And one of the things you can try is just a quick shove like that, or just a tug up to see if you can get the strings kind of knocked back in tune. And now I've got a bonus tip for you, and it's the tip I heard from one of my friends who apparently heard it from Maddie Schieferstein. It was actually Jared, who I filmed the Lost Nebula guitar video with. Very cool video about a guitar that was supposed to go to John Petrucci, but kind of got shuffled around and ended up being in private ownership, and I got to demo it. And so really, really cool guitar. I'll link that video right up here and you can go watch it. But the trick that Jared shared with me was the order in which you tune the strings on this guitar. And he said that Maddie said to start with the G string and then progress to D, A, E, and B on a 7th string, and then do the high E and the high B strings. And I found that going through my tuning this way has worked out really well for me. And just one last little thing that I'll frequently do, especially if I'm about to record, is something I just call double tuning. And I will tune the strings in that order, and then I'll go through and I will tune the strings again just to work out any last little, 2 or 3 cent kind of imbalances that can happen when you're going through the tuning process, especially on any kind of true floating bridge guitar. So I hope this really helped you out. If you enjoy videos like this that really dive deep on resolving the tension between the nut and the playing area, I'd really appreciate it if you share this with a friend or you hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.